Pray this powerful November. Prayer for blessing and breakthrough. Morning prayer. Have you ever prayed until your voice trembled, yet felt as if heaven stayed silent? Those moments when you wonder if your faith is still enough, when every effort seems unseen, when the breakthrough you've been waiting for feels so far away. You're not alone. Because every heart that seeks God deeply will eventually face the silence before the answer. But silence does not mean absence. It is in that sacred stillness where God prepares something greater than you could ever imagine. This prayer is not just for another morning. It is for this season of your life, for this November, when the winds of change are blowing and the Lord is calling you to rise again. You may have faced delays, disappointments, and battles that left you weary. But even now, God's voice is whispering into your soul. Do not give up. Your prayer has been heard. Just like in the book of Daniel, chapter 10, when the angel said, "From the first day you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard." The delay was never a denial. It was spiritual warfare behind the scenes. As you step into this new month, something powerful begins to unfold. This is not a time for fear or doubt. It's a time for divine alignment, when heaven begins to move in response to your faith. Every prayer you whispered in the dark, every tear that fell unnoticed, every moment you stayed faithful when no one was watching, God counted them all. You are standing on the edge of a breakthrough that was written long before you felt the struggle. The Lord is not asking you to understand everything. He is asking you to believe, even when understanding is impossible. Faith is not about control, it's about surrender. The moment you let go of trying to fix everything on your own, heaven begins to work in ways you cannot see. So, as this prayer begins, open your heart. Let every word wash over you like a wave of peace. Let every verse remind you that God has not forgotten your name, your family, or your dream. This is the prayer of release, the prayer that invites heaven to intervene. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present, to breathe in hope again, to remember that you were chosen for such a time as this. As the morning light rises, let this be your declaration. I will not be defeated by the waiting. I will be strengthened by it. Because today heaven hears your cry, and this November the same God who parted the sea, who raised the dead, who turned mourning into dancing, is still the same God who will move mountains for you. The question is not whether he can. The question is, are you ready to believe again? Now take a breath. This is where your new beginning starts. The meaning of a new beginning in November. Every season carries a message from God, and November is no exception. It is a bridge between what has been and what is yet to come, a sacred threshold where endings and beginnings meet. The world may see it as just another month, but spiritually, it's a moment of divine reset. The number 11, often linked to November, symbolizes transition and alignment. It represents the moment right before completion, a call to prepare your heart for the fulfillment that's coming. In God's design, no season is wasted. Every change of time carries purpose. November whispers, the harvest is near. It reminds us that while the year may be closing, God's promises are still unfolding. Think of Ruth, working faithfully in the fields long before she saw redemption in Boaz's eyes. Her story began in the quiet obedience of daily effort. Just like her, you are walking through fields you may not yet understand, but they are leading you toward your divine appointment. This month, heaven is inviting you to see beyond what is visible. The leaves fall, the air shifts, the days shorten, but even in nature, God teaches renewal. Something must let go for something new to grow. The withering of one chapter is not death, it's preparation for life. The same is true in your spiritual journey. What you thought was loss may have been God clearing the ground for new roots to take hold. There are moments when God allows things to close not because He's finished with you, but because He's preparing to reveal His next move. November is a divine pause, a sacred exhale, where you are invited to release the weight of the past months, the disappointments, the unanswered questions, the silent prayers, and to lift your eyes to the horizon of what He's about to do. If you listen closely, you'll notice how the Spirit speaks differently in this season. The same voice that calmed the storm now whispers reassurance to your soul. I am still in control. The same God who spoke to Elijah in the gentle breeze is now breathing new courage into you. He is calling you to step out of fear and into faith, out of regret and into gratitude. As November begins, ask yourself, what is God asking me to release? What is He preparing me to receive? Because the two are always connected. You cannot embrace what's ahead while your hands are clinging to what has passed. God never closes one door without opening another. But sometimes, He waits for you to turn the handle of surrender. This month carries a spiritual shift. It's not just about what changes outside of you. It's about what transforms within you. It's the season to rebuild your confidence in God's timing, to renew your strength in prayer, and to realign your purpose with heaven's rhythm. The storms you faced were not random. They were refining you for something far greater than comfort. They were preparing you for calling. So as you step into this new beginning, don't rush. Breathe. Pray. Listen. November is not an ending. It's an awakening. The year is not over, and neither is your story. God still has chapters to write through your faith, and He is not done turning pain into testimony. Let this month be your sacred reminder that no matter how the year began, it can still end in victory. For in the kingdom of God, it's never too late for a new beginning. God's timing is never late. There are moments in life when the waiting feels unbearable, when prayers have stretched across weeks, months, or even years, and the silence feels like a verdict. You begin to wonder if maybe God has forgotten you, or if the promise you once believed in was never meant to happen. Yet in those hidden seasons of delay, something sacred is taking place. God is preparing you for what He has already prepared for you. His timing may test your patience, but it never fails His purpose. In the book of John, chapter 11, Jesus arrives at the tomb of Lazarus 4 days after his death. To the eyes of men, He was late, but heaven is never late. It is precise. The miracle of Lazarus could not have happened while there was still hope in human strength. It had to happen when all logic had died, so that only divine power could be glorified. The same principle applies to your life. God often allows things to reach the point of impossibility so that His glory becomes undeniable. Waiting is not punishment, it is refinement. It's in the waiting that faith matures, character deepens, and dependency on God strengthens. You may feel like time is slipping away, but in the kingdom, no moment is wasted. Every prayer you've prayed is stored in heaven like seeds planted in divine soil. And when the season is right, those seeds will burst into harvest. Not a second too soon, not a moment too late. Think of Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a son, but decades passed before Isaac was born. Every year that went by felt like a contradiction to the promise. Yet when the miracle finally came, it carried the weight of purpose that impatience could never have produced. Had the promise arrived early, their faith would have been shallow. Instead, it became generational, birthing nations through their perseverance. You see, delay is often the space where God writes His most powerful testimonies. While you are praying for speed, God is building stability. While you are asking for results, He is constructing roots. The process might look slow, but it's strategic. Because if you receive what you're asking for too soon, it could destroy what it was meant to bless. God's timing is protection, disguised as patience. There's a quiet power in trusting God when everything around you screams for control. Faith is not proven in the receiving, it's proven in the waiting. When you wake up another morning and still choose to believe, that's when heaven takes notice. When you lift your hands and worship even when the answer hasn't come, that's when the ground beneath your feet begins to shift. Every delay that once hurt you will one day serve you. The truth is, God is never late because He doesn't move according to clocks or calendars. He moves according to readiness. When your heart is aligned, when your faith is stretched, when your dependence is fully on Him, that's when divine timing unfolds. You will look back one day and realize that the very moment you thought God had forgotten you was the moment He was orchestrating your breakthrough behind the scenes. So instead of asking, "When will it happen?" ask, What is God preparing in me while I wait? Because every divine delay carries a hidden design. You may not see it now, but when the promise arrives, it will fit perfectly, like the final piece of a puzzle that only heaven could arrange. Remember this: what seems delayed is not denied. God is not behind schedule. He is aligning your steps with destiny. Trust that the God who began the work will complete it in His perfect time. Not yours, not the world's, but His. Breaking the chain of delay and doubt. Every blessing that God prepares for your life has an appointed time, but there are also forces, both spiritual and emotional, that try to delay its arrival. These are not always external battles. Sometimes they exist within us. Doubt, fear, discouragement, and spiritual fatigue can become invisible chains that slow down the very miracle we are praying for. When faith is weakened by delay, the heart begins to lose its rhythm of trust. That's when you must rise in prayer, not just to ask, but to break every chain that binds your progress. In the book of Daniel, chapter 10, Daniel prayed for 21 days before the angel of the Lord appeared, saying, "From the first day you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia resisted me." This passage is not only about ancient warfare, it reveals a timeless truth. When you pray, something happens in the unseen realm. Heaven hears immediately, but sometimes your answer is delayed because resistance rises against what God has declared over your life. The resistance can come through spiritual opposition, but it can also manifest in your own thoughts. The enemy doesn't always need to stop you. He only needs to make you doubt. A seed of uncertainty can silence a forest of faith. Every time you question whether God will come through, you loosen your grip on the promise. Every time you let fear speak louder than faith, you delay what was meant to move forward. But when you pray with conviction, declaring God's word as truth, you align your spirit with heaven's authority, and no force can hold back what has been released for you. Breaking the chain of delay starts with recognizing where the doubt lives inside you. Maybe it's in your expectations. You've been disappointed so many times that hope feels dangerous. Maybe it's in your past, where unanswered prayers left scars that whisper, "Don't believe too much." But God is calling you to reclaim the faith that was buried under those wounds. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives in you. That means the power to rise, to rebuild, to break through, already dwells within your spirit. When you lift your voice in prayer, you are not begging heaven for attention. You are activating your authority as a child of God. You are declaring, "Enough is enough." Every delay that has lingered in your career, in your relationships, in your healing, begins to lose its hold when faith becomes louder than frustration. Prayer shifts the atmosphere not because it manipulates God's will, but because it transforms your alignment with His plan. Remember that doubt thrives in silence. It feeds on passivity. But when you begin to speak life, when you pray boldly, when you praise even through pain, the chains start to crack. The walls that seemed immovable begin to tremble. Just as Paul and Silas sang in prison and the doors swung open, your worship has the same power to release what's been locked. To break the chain of delay and doubt is to step into a new posture, one of expectation. You are not waiting as a victim of circumstance. You are standing as a vessel of promise. Every time you choose to believe again, heaven moves closer to your situation. Every time you declare that God is faithful, the enemy loses ground. Today, let your prayer be your weapon. Let your faith be your freedom. Lift your hands and say, "Lord, I believe, even when my eyes cannot see." Because the moment you release doubt, you make room for destiny. And where destiny walks in, delay must leave. The voice of gratitude before the miracle. Gratitude is one of the most powerful languages of faith, and yet it is often forgotten in the space between prayer and fulfillment. Many wait to give thanks after the blessing arrives, but those who understand the heart of God know that gratitude before the miracle is what unlocks heaven's favor. It is the posture of trust that says, "Even if I haven't seen it yet, I believe it's already on the way." In the book of Luke, chapter 17, verses 11 to 19, 10 men suffering from leprosy cried out to Jesus for healing. He told them to go and show themselves to the priests, a command that required obedience before evidence. As they went, they were healed, but only one returned to give thanks. And to that one, Jesus said, "Your faith has made you whole." Notice the difference. All 10 received healing, but only the one who returned in gratitude received wholeness. Gratitude didn't just bring restoration to his body. It completed what faith had begun in his soul. That is the mystery of thankfulness. It multiplies what you already have and prepares you for what you're asking for. Gratitude turns waiting into worship. It transforms lack into seed, pain into purpose, and silence into sacred preparation. When you thank God in advance, you are declaring that His word is more real than your circumstance. You are choosing to believe His promise over your perception. So often, people hold their breath for the breakthrough and forget to breathe out praise. But gratitude changes the atmosphere around you. It shifts focus from what's missing to what's present. It reminds you that even in the waiting, you are still surrounded by grace. Every sunrise, every breath, every moment of peace in the middle of chaos is a sign that God is still at work. Gratitude is the soil where faith grows. Think of Paul and Silas in the prison cell. They didn't wait for the doors to open before singing. They sang while still chained, and heaven responded with an earthquake that set them free. Their praise became the key to their deliverance. The same is true for you. When you worship in the middle of your struggle, you are telling the storm it cannot silence your faith. When you thank God for what's not yet visible, you invite Him to reveal it in His perfect time. There's also a hidden strength in gratitude. It guards your heart against bitterness. When prayers take longer than expected, the mind can turn against hope, whispering that maybe God has overlooked you. But a thankful heart silences those lies. It reminds you that delay is not rejection, and that every moment of waiting is part of divine construction. Gratitude doesn't ignore pain, it redeems it by giving it meaning. If you've been waiting for a breakthrough this November, begin to thank God now. Thank Him for the doors He's about to open, for the healing already written into your story, for the peace that's being restored to your spirit. Speak words of gratitude until your faith feels alive again. The more you thank Him, the less room there is for fear. The more you focus on His goodness, the clearer you see His hand at work. Gratitude is not a reaction, it's a revelation. It reveals that you trust the author of your story, even when you haven't read the ending. When you lift your voice in thanks, heaven listens, and miracles begin to stir. Because God always moves where faith breathes, and gratitude is the purest breath of all. So before the miracle arrives, before the promise is visible, lift your hands and whisper, "Thank you, Lord." That simple act turns waiting into worship, and worship into wonder. It's how heaven knows you are ready to receive, standing firm in the storm. Every believer faces moments when the sky darkens, the winds rise, and the foundations of faith begin to tremble. These are the storms that test not only your strength but your trust. It's in these moments, when everything familiar starts to fall apart, that God whispers the most powerful truth. Be still and know that I am God. Storms are not punishments, they are passages. They are the refining fires that strip away what is temporary so that what is eternal may stand. In the book of Acts, chapter 27, Paul faced a violent storm on his journey to Rome. The waves were merciless, the ship was breaking apart, and every man aboard feared death. Yet in the middle of that chaos, an angel of the Lord appeared to Paul, assuring him that not one life would be lost. Paul stood in the midst of fear and declared, "Take heart, for I believe God." That single statement became the anchor that saved an entire crew. The storms in your life may not involve wind or sea, but they can feel just as consuming. A diagnosis, a loss, a dream that crumbled, a door that closed when you thought it would open. These are the moments that strip you of comfort and force you to decide. Will you panic or will you trust? Because faith is not proven in calm waters. It is revealed in the waves. To stand firm in the storm is to remember that God is not outside of it. He is within it. The same voice that spoke the world into existence speaks peace into the wind. When Jesus was asleep in the boat during the storm in the book of Mark, chapter 4, his disciples panicked and cried out, "Teacher, don't you care that we are perishing?" But Jesus rose, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." Instantly, the storm obeyed. Then he asked them, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" His question wasn't about the storm. It was about their trust. There will be times when you can't stop the storm, but you can choose your posture in it. You can choose to trust God's presence more than the power of the problem. Every wave that threatens to drown you is also lifting you closer to His purpose. What you think is breaking you might actually be positioning you for a greater revelation of His strength. The waves are not your enemy. They are your classroom. When everything seems uncertain, anchor yourself in what never changes: the faithfulness of God. His promises are not swept away by the wind. His word does not sink beneath the waves. You are not defined by what you are going through. You are defined by who goes through it with you. The storm that surrounds you cannot destroy the peace that lives within you if that peace is rooted in Christ. And there's something extraordinary about those who worship in the storm. Their praise becomes a declaration of trust that hell cannot silence. When you lift your voice in faith amid fear, the storm begins to lose its power. Because the moment you stop fighting for control and start resting in God's sovereignty, the waves become still, not because they disappeared, but because your soul found calm within them. If you're walking through a storm right now, don't ask God to take you out of it. Ask Him to reveal Himself in it. Let the storm teach you what comfort never could. Let it strengthen your patience, deepen your roots, and refine your courage. You may not understand the purpose of this season yet, but one day you will look back and see that what was meant to shake you actually shaped you. So plant your feet in faith. Lift your head toward heaven. The God who commands the winds still commands your destiny. You will not sink. You will not break. You will come out stronger, wiser, and closer to the one who calms the sea. Because when you stand firm in the storm, you don't just survive, you rise. When your faith feels small. There are days when faith feels like fire, unshakable, fierce, and alive. And then there are days when it flickers like a dying candle, barely holding on. You pray, but the words feel heavy. You try to believe, but doubt creeps in like a shadow. You look at the mountain ahead and wonder if your small faith is enough to move it. But here's the truth. God never asked for a mountain of faith. He asked for a mustard seed. In the book of Matthew, chapter 17, verse 20, Jesus says, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you." A mustard seed is one of the smallest seeds known, yet it grows into something strong and unshakable. Jesus used it as a reminder that faith is not measured by size but by sincerity. It's not about how much faith you have, it's about where you place it. God doesn't need your perfection to perform His promises. He needs your trust. Even when your faith feels fragile, if it's placed in His hands, it becomes powerful. The same God who multiplied 5 loaves and 2 fish can multiply the smallest act of belief into something extraordinary. When you whisper a prayer through tears, when you worship while your heart is breaking, when you choose to hope again after disappointment, that's faith in motion. And heaven moves at its sound. There's a reason Jesus didn't compare faith to something large or majestic like an oak tree. He chose something tiny because He knew there would be days when you'd feel weak. He wanted you to know that even then, you are still seen, still heard, and still capable of miracles. Your mustard seed of faith can part your own Red Sea, silence your storm, and open doors that fear tried to close. Maybe you've been comparing your faith to others, thinking, "I wish I believed like them." But comparison is the thief of confidence. God is not grading your faith against anyone else's. He is nurturing it. Faith is not a performance, it's a relationship. And relationships grow stronger through vulnerability, not perfection. The moments when you admit your weakness are often the very moments God's strength becomes visible in you. Think of Peter walking on water in the book of Matthew, chapter 14. He took a few steps, then began to sink. But even as fear pulled him down, he cried out, "Lord, save me." and Jesus immediately reached out his hand. Peter didn't fail because he sank. He triumphed because he reached. That's what faith looks like when it feels small. It doesn't always stand tall. Sometimes it clings to grace and refuses to let go. Small faith can still open heaven. It can still heal, restore, and rebuild. Because it's not the size of your faith that moves God. It's the direction of it. Faith pointed toward him, no matter how fragile, still carries the power of the Almighty behind it. God honors effort, not eloquence. He values trust, not perfection. So when your faith feels small, don't hide it. Plant it. Speak the promises of God over your life even when your voice shakes. Keep praying even when your heart feels numb. Every act of faith, no matter how small, is noticed by heaven. Every time you choose to believe instead of give up, you are building spiritual muscle that cannot be taken away. You may not have the strength to move the mountain yet, but you have the courage to face it, and that's where miracles begin. Faith doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, "I'll try again tomorrow." And that whisper is enough for God to work with. Because the smallest faith in a limitless God is still greater than the greatest fear in a powerless world. Hold on to your mustard seed, protect it. Water it with prayer, nourish it with gratitude, and guard it from doubt. For in due time, that tiny seed will grow into a tree of unwavering trust, and its branches will become a refuge for others who once felt small too. The hidden blessings behind delays. There are moments in life when the word wait feels like the hardest command God could give. You pray, you fast, you do everything right, and yet the doors stay closed. It's in that stillness, when your soul aches for movement, that God is often working the most. What feels like a delay is not a denial, it's divine design. Heaven is never in a hurry, because eternity doesn't rush. God delays only to deliver something deeper than what you asked for. Look at the story of Joseph. In the book of Genesis, Joseph was given a dream of greatness, but instead of being lifted, he was thrown into a pit, sold as a slave, and later imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. For years, it seemed as if the dream had died. But the delay was not punishment. It was preparation. In the silence of the prison, God was shaping Joseph into the kind of man who could handle the weight of the promise.
When the time came, Joseph was not just ready to lead Egypt. He was ready to forgive the brothers who betrayed him. The delay refined his heart, not just his destiny. The same principle is true for you. What feels like God's distance may actually be his protection. Sometimes he hides you in seasons of obscurity because premature exposure could destroy what he's building within you.
You think you're being overlooked, but heaven is simply keeping you in the shadows until your foundation is strong enough to stand in the light. When the blessing finally comes, you will realize that if it had come sooner, it might have crushed you. Delays also teach discernment. They force you to confront whether you're chasing the promise or the promiser. It's easy to love God when prayers are answered quickly. It's harder when the silence lingers. But it's in that silence that your love becomes pure. You stop seeking him for what he can give and start seeking him for who he is. The waiting turns into worship. And that's when true peace begins. Not because circumstances changed, but because your perspective did. There's also a mystery in how God uses time. He doesn't only prepare blessings for you, he prepares you for the blessing. Every unanswered prayer is a lesson in trust, every closed door a redirection toward something better. In the delay, God strengthens your spiritual muscles, patience, resilience, humility. You're not stuck, you're being stretched, and what's stretching you now will sustain you later. The Apostle Paul understood this when he wrote in the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, "All things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose." Notice it doesn't say some things. Even the disappointments, the detours, and the delays are woven into the tapestry of divine purpose. The threads may look tangled now, but when you step back and see the whole design, you'll realize that every pause had purpose. Perhaps you've been asking, why is it taking so long? But a better question might be, what is God building in me through this? Because every waiting room has an altar. Every delay is an invitation to grow deeper in dependence. You may not see the full picture yet, But one day you'll look back and thank God that He didn't give you what you wanted when you wanted it. He gave you something far better: wisdom, peace, and readiness. The hidden blessings behind delays are the kind that last. They teach you to rest instead of rush, to pray instead of panic, and to trust that God is faithful even when He's silent. Your waiting season is not wasted. It's the womb of your next miracle. So today, stop fighting the delay. Breathe. Be still. Let patience do its work. Because the God who wrote your story already knows the perfect chapter to turn next. And when He does, it will unfold with beauty you could never have written on your own. Declaring breakthrough over your life. There comes a moment when prayer must turn into proclamation, when you stop pleading for freedom and start declaring it with authority. Words carry spiritual weight. The same voice that spoke creation into existence now lives within you. When you speak in faith, you are not describing your situation, you are reshaping it. Heaven responds to the language of conviction. In the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 21, it says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." Every word that leaves your lips becomes a seed in the soil of your future. You can choose to plant fear, or you can choose to plant faith. When you declare breakthrough, you are aligning your voice with heaven's will, not earth's limitations. This is not positive thinking, it's spiritual warfare. Your declarations are weapons that push back the darkness and invite the light of God's presence to reign over your life. Think of how Jesus spoke to the storm in the book of Mark, chapter 4. He didn't beg for calm, He commanded it. He stood with authority and said, "Peace, be still." And the wind obeyed because creation recognizes the voice of its creator. When you speak God's word with faith, that same authority flows through you. The storm cannot resist the sound of truth declared in power. Declaring breakthrough begins with knowing who you are in Christ. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are a child of the King. The cross didn't just forgive your sins, it restored your authority. When you speak, you are not trying to convince God to move. You are agreeing with what He has already promised. The victory has already been won, and your declaration activates it in your life. So, declare freedom over your mind. Declare healing over your body. Declare restoration over your family. Speak to the fear that has lingered in your heart and tell it, "You have no place here." Speak to the financial struggle and say, "My God shall supply all my needs according to His riches in glory." Speak to the feeling of defeat and declare, "I am more than a conqueror through Christ who strengthens me." Every declaration becomes a doorway through which the presence of God steps into your reality. There's something powerful about saying it out loud. The enemy works in silence and secrecy, but light breaks through when faith finds a voice. Your prayer might begin in whispers, but let it rise into authority. Let your words carry conviction, not desperation. Declare what God has said, not what fear suggests. The more you speak truth, the less room there is for lies. Breakthrough often begins long before you see it. It starts the moment you decide to believe again. The moment you open your mouth and release words of faith, you are announcing to heaven and hell that you refuse to stay bound. Chains break when faith speaks. In the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37, the prophet was told to speak to the dry bones. As he declared God's word over them, bone came to bone, flesh covered them, and breath entered once lifeless bodies. What seemed dead began to live again, because someone dared to speak life into it. So, today, speak to your dry places. Declare movement where there's been stagnation, joy where there's been sorrow, abundance where there's been lack. Do not wait for your feelings to catch up. Speak until your soul believes it. The power of faith is not in how loud you shout, but in how deeply you trust the one you're speaking to. This November, open your mouth and declare, "I am walking into breakthrough. I am walking into peace. I am walking into blessing." And as you do, watch how the atmosphere around you begins to shift. The walls that once confined you will start to crumble. Because when a believer declares with faith, heaven listens, angels move, and the impossible becomes possible. Your victory is not a distant promise. It's a spoken reality waiting to be released. So stand firm, lift your voice, and declare the breakthrough that has already been written in your name. The prayer that opens the heavens. There are prayers that rise gently like incense, soft, steady, and peaceful. But there are also prayers that shake the atmosphere, that tear through despair and bring heaven down to earth. This is that kind of prayer, the one that opens the heavens. It's not about eloquent words or perfect timing. It's about surrender. It's about reaching the end of yourself so that the power of God can begin. When Elijah prayed on Mount Carmel, as told in the book of 1 Kings chapter 18, the skies were locked and the land was dry. For years, no rain had fallen. People had grown numb, doubting that heaven still listened. Yet Elijah climbed to the top of the mountain, bowed low, and prayed with fierce expectation. He didn't see clouds at first. He just kept praying, again and again. Until the seventh time, a small cloud appeared, no bigger than a hand. That was all God needed to prove that the heavens were never truly closed. Elijah's persistence opened the floodgates of rain, and the nation witnessed what faith could do when it refuses to quit. This is the prayer we bring into November, the prayer that refuses to bow to fear or exhaustion. It begins with stillness. Take a deep breath. Let your heart settle. Every worry, every weight, every distraction, lay them down now. You are stepping into holy ground. The God who formed the stars is listening to you. He is not distant. He is not silent. The space between heaven and your heart is one whispered prayer away. Say it within yourself or aloud, wherever you are. Lord, I open my heart to you. I surrender the battles I've been fighting in silence. I release the pain I've been holding, the plans I've been forcing, the fears I've been feeding. I give you my disappointment, my exhaustion, my questions. I trust that you are working in ways I cannot see. I believe that your timing is perfect, your will is good, and your power is limitless. Today, I realign my life with your purpose. I break agreement with doubt and speak faith over every dry place within me. Now, feel the shift. Heaven moves where faith breathes. When your words align with God's promises, the spiritual atmosphere changes. Angels respond to the sound of obedience. Darkness loses its grip when light is declared. You are not praying into emptiness. You are speaking into eternity. Continue praying. Father, open the heavens over my life this month. Let your rain fall on everything that has felt barren. Restore what was lost. Heal what was broken. Revive what has grown cold. Pour out your favor over my family, my work, my health, and my purpose. I speak peace over every storm and light over every shadow. I invite the Holy Spirit to fill every space within me. Where there is fear, plant courage. Where there is sorrow, sow joy. Where there is confusion, bring clarity. I declare that your presence is my atmosphere, your word is my foundation, and your promises are my future. Prayer is not just a request, it's a release. Every word leaves your heart and travels to the throne of grace, where it is heard by the one who never forgets. This kind of prayer breaks the invisible ceilings that life tries to build above you. It tears down the lies that whisper, "It's too late." It silences the noise of fear and tunes your spirit to heaven's frequency. Now pause. Let your silence become part of the prayer. Because sometimes the most powerful words are the ones left unspoken, the ones God reads directly from your heart. Feel His peace settle over you like the first drops of rain after a long drought. That peace is not emotion, it's confirmation. It means the heavens are open, and the answer has already begun its journey toward you. This is the prayer that opens the heavens, not because of who prays, but because of who listens. The God who parted the Red Sea, who shut the lions' mouths, who walked through fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is the same God listening to you right now. The heavens open when faith meets surrender. So keep praying, not until something changes, but until you do. For when your heart aligns with God's will, every closed door, every heavy sky, every silent season begins to break open under the weight of His glory. From struggle to testimony, every believer carries a story, not just of blessings, but of battles. And in those battles, God writes the most powerful testimonies. What once felt like breaking is often the very thing that becomes the bridge toward breakthrough. Pain, when surrendered to God, transforms into purpose. Your story of struggle is not a mark of shame, it's a platform for His glory. Look at the story of Hannah in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 1. She wept in the temple, year after year, feeling forgotten while others celebrated their blessings. Her pain was raw, her waiting long, yet even in her anguish, she didn't stop praying. She didn't let bitterness replace belief. She poured out her heart before God and made a vow of faith. When her prayer was answered and Samuel was born, she didn't cling to him. She offered him back to God. Her struggle became her testimony. What once brought her tears became the very thing that changed a nation. God often allows pain to precede purpose because it deepens your understanding of grace. You can't truly testify about healing unless you've felt broken. You can't speak of peace unless you've walked through chaos. Your tears are not wasted. They water the soil where your testimony will grow. Every trial is a training ground for trust. And when the moment comes, the same thing that once wounded you will become the weapon that strengthens others. Think of the blind man in the book of John, chapter 9. When the disciples asked Jesus who had sinned to cause his blindness, Jesus replied, "Neither this man nor his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him." Sometimes, your struggle has nothing to do with punishment and everything to do with purpose. It's not evidence of God's absence, but proof of His plan. You may not see it now, but one day you'll look back and realize that your greatest suffering produced your greatest strength. The nights you cried alone were not empty. Heaven was listening. The prayers you thought went unanswered were actually being rewritten into something greater than you asked for. God is the only author who can take broken sentences and turn them into redemption stories. Your testimony begins the moment you choose to trust Him in the middle of the unknown. It's when you declare, "Even if I don't understand, I still believe." That's the turning point. Because faith that only exists in victory is shallow. But faith that stands through pain is unshakable. God doesn't waste wounds, He transforms them into wisdom. When people see you walking in peace after what you've endured, they won't understand how you survived. That's because what sustained you wasn't strength, it was grace. And that grace will turn you into a living testimony that speaks louder than any sermon. Perhaps your struggle has lasted longer than you expected. Maybe you've prayed and waited, but nothing seems to change. Don't mistake silence for abandonment. The testimony isn't finished yet. The same God who turned Joseph's prison into a palace, Job's ashes into restoration, and Hannah's tears into triumph is still writing your ending. You may be in the middle of the story, but the author has already written victory in the final chapter. Hold on. The time will come when you will speak not of how hard it was, but of how faithful God remained. You'll realize that your scars aren't symbols of defeat. They're evidence that you survived. And when you share your story, others will find hope in your honesty, strength in your surrender, and courage in your comeback. That's what a true testimony is. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. You are not just a survivor. You are a sign that God still performs miracles through ordinary lives. So let your story be heard. Let it carry light into the darkness for someone still fighting their storm. Because when your faith turns struggle into testimony, heaven uses your voice to heal the world. A month of miracles awaits. There is a sacred power in beginnings, a divine spark that ignites when faith meets expectation. As November unfolds, heaven is whispering, "It's time. Time to rise above fear. Time to believe again. Time to let go of what was and make room for what is coming." This is not just another month on the calendar. It's a spiritual invitation. God is calling you into a new atmosphere, one filled with peace, restoration, and breakthrough. You've prayed through the pain, you've endured the silence, and you've kept walking when it would have been easier to stop. Now that perseverance becomes the soil where your miracle grows. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who healed the leper, who rolled the stone away from the tomb, is still at work in your story. You may not see the full picture yet, but heaven's blueprint is already unfolding beneath your feet. Every closed door, every delay, every tear has led you here, to this sacred moment where faith meets fulfillment. This is your month to declare victory even before you see it. To wake each morning and say, "Lord, I trust you with what I cannot control." To walk in peace when chaos surrounds you, and to speak life into places that once felt barren. Miracles don't always begin with lightning and thunder. Sometimes they start with a whisper of surrender. When your heart says, "Yes, God, I'm ready," the heavens respond. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 43, verse 19, God says, "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" Miracles often begin quietly, like a seed breaking open beneath the soil, unseen but unstoppable. This November, something is breaking open for you. What was closed will open. What was delayed will align. What was broken will be rebuilt stronger than before. The same Spirit that hovered over the waters in the beginning is hovering over your life right now, preparing new creation from what once seemed formless. Every time you choose faith over fear, you give God permission to move. Every time you speak His promises, you invite heaven to invade earth through your words. Every act of trust, every moment of praise, every prayer whispered in the dark, it all matters. The spiritual world is shifting in your favor. So take this moment and seal it with belief. Say within your heart, "This month I will walk in blessing. I will walk in peace. I will walk in breakthrough." Let that declaration become your daily anthem. Because when faith becomes lifestyle, miracles become inevitable. You are not entering this month alone. Heaven goes before you, the Spirit walks beside you, and grace follows behind you. And as you feel this word settle in your heart, take one more step of faith. Share it. Let your testimony ignite someone else's hope. Speak light into their darkness, courage into their fear, healing into their weariness. Because every miracle multiplies when it's shared. If this message spoke to your soul, let it continue its journey. Like the ripple of a stone cast into still water, your act of faith can reach hearts you may never see. So keep this fire alive. Like this video, share it with someone who needs a touch from God today, and subscribe so that these prayers can keep finding you wherever you are. A month of miracles awaits. Step forward in faith and watch what happens when heaven responds to a heart that dares to believe.